Get comfortable with English in comfort. This is your English listening practice podcast to help you learn and improve naturally.
You know, Anna, I was reading something the other day, and I stumbled upon something really interesting and funny.
What was it?
Well, that's the thing. I don't remember. I remember it made me laugh, and I remember it was interesting. But I don't remember what it was about. It's so frustrating.
But how can you remember that it was funny? But you don't even remember the words.
I know, right? Doesn't it happen to you? You read and you read and you think you understand everything, but then the next day when you try to recall the information, nothing. You can't remember it.
Well, that's a big problem for a lot of people. And do you know why, James? That's because sometimes the way we read is just not the correct way. We don't read to remember. But guess what? Today we are going to fix that.
That's right. I'm James.
And I'm Anna. Welcome back to English in Comfort, the place where you can learn English while you relax, lie down, or even while you sleep. No pressure, no stress, just natural English and interesting topics.
And today's topic is a real game changer. We are going to learn how to remember everything you read.
So, get comfortable, grab your tea, and let's get started. So, first thing, to help remember everything we read is actually super simple. We have to engage with what we're reading.
Could you explain the word engage in this context? Because I feel like this word is really important for today's episode.
Of course. What I mean by engage, I mean be fully present with the words. Really think about them. And one way to do that is to simply ask questions.
Asking questions while reading is one of the most effective ways to help you remember. But you might wonder, what kind of questions do we ask? We've got some examples for you.
That's right. One thing to ask is, what is this about? To get the main idea.
Then ask simple questions as you read like, what did the author just say? Or, what does he mean when he said this?
It's like you're talking to the book, right?
Right. And yeah, it might feel a little silly, but it works. And by the way, we call this active reading.
Active reading. It basically means your brain is on, like turned on while you read. You're not just gliding over the words, you're actually engaged.
And that's the opposite of passive reading, which, let's be honest, a lot of people do. They just read the words, maybe for fun, maybe for pleasure, but not really working at it.
So if you want to remember what you read, you have to be active. Like we said, asking questions forces your brain to work. It has to find an answer. It has to focus.
Exactly. When your brain is on and focused, you remember what you read so much better. Okay, so we've talked about asking questions to make our reading active. Now, what's the next thing we should do to remember better?
Well, the next thing is to visualize. Visualizing when you read is like making a picture in your mind.
This is where you use your imagination. Our brains love pictures. It is much, much easier to remember a picture than it is to remember a lot of words. It's like you're not just reading words. You're creating a story in your mind.
Let's say I'm reading something and there is this sentence. The tall green trees stood by the calm blue river. A passive reader would just read the words. but an active reader would make a picture in their mind. I can see very tall, beautiful trees, and they are green. And I see a quiet, blue river next to them. I can almost hear the water. It feels so calm.
See? You made a picture. And now it's not just words. It's a picture in your mind. And you will remember that picture for a long, long time. Here is another example. Try to visualize and picture it with us. A small brown dog ran quickly across the street to find a big red ball.
Okay, so I can see a small dog. It's a brown dog, and it is running very fast. It runs to a big ball, and the ball is red. I can see the whole picture.
And that's all it takes. It doesn't have to be a big picture, just a small picture in your mind. This is a very powerful trick to help you remember everything you read.
It makes reading feel so much more interesting.
Okay, Anna, we've talked about asking questions and visualizing. Now, the next thing we can do is a funny one. We call it linking.
Linking. I think this is a great method to remember anything. It simply means you link a new idea to an old idea you already know.
Exactly. Your mind already has so many rooms with so much information. When you learn something new, you can put it in a room with something you already know. It makes it so much easier to find later.
That's right. So, let's say you meet a new person and their name is Mark, and you already know a friend named Mark. You can link the new person to your friend. So, when you try to remember the new person's name, you just think of your friend Mark.
That is a great example. So, you're not trying to remember a new name. You're just recalling an old name and the connection.
You got it. It's like you're building a bridge between the old information and the new one.
Let's say you read a fact that says, the first car was invented in the year 1886.
Someone might need to remember the number 1886. It could be someone's birthday is also in the year 1886. So it helps remember better.
And this is really clever if you think about it.
It is. It is a fun and creative way to learn and to remember. Okay, so what is the next thing we can do that makes us remember everything we read?
The next thing you can do is to take notes.
Exactly. Taking notes. Because there is nothing as effective as writing down what you just learned. You are not just reading with your eyes. You're using your hand to write too.
So you're using another part of your body. Your brain has more to do, so it stays more engaged.
Also, when you write, it forces you to slow down. You can't write as fast as you can read, so you have to really think about the words and the ideas.
You are kind of making your brain work harder.
That's right. But what do we actually write? Of course, you can't write a whole article or a whole book.
Of course, you don't have to write everything. You can write new words that you don't know. You can write the main ideas of what you just read.
Just taking notes and writing a little bit can help you remember a lot.
All of this is part of being an active reader, isn't it?
It is. Just like visualizing and linking, taking notes is an important part of active reading. It helps you engage with the information on a deeper level. Let's stay with writing. Another important thing you can do with your pen and notebook when you read is to summarize.
To summarize. is to take what you just read and say the main ideas in your own words. You don't copy the words you see, but you think about what you read and say it in a new way.
This is important because you're not just reading with your eyes, you're actually processing the information. And when you use your own words, you're forcing your brain to really understand the information. If you can't say it in your own words, you probably don't understand it completely.
And that simple act of thinking and rewriting the idea in your mind helps you remember it so much better. It is an important step. Because when you just read, sometimes you think you understand, but you don't. But when you summarize, you really know if you understood everything.
So, summarizing is a very powerful part of active reading. It helps you take the information and make it your own. When you want to remember everything you read, you need to talk about it too. Speaking and saying it out loud makes a really big difference, you know?
It does. When you talk about what you read, it reinforces the information in your mind. It makes it stick even more.
That's right. So find someone you can talk about what you read to. But what if you don't have anyone to talk to about it? Or you just don't want to talk about it to anyone? Well, you can just talk about it to yourself.
Exactly. It is a great speaking practice for you. You can just talk about what you learned.
Let me show you how you can do it. Today, I read a book that talks about social anxiety. The book was really interesting. What I found the most interesting is when the author said that social anxiety is not a sickness, but more of a skill you can develop. I also liked his ideas and solutions to overcome it.
So you just have to talk. Talk about what the book was about, or about what the most interesting part. Anything you just learned. So, we've talked about a lot of things. But the last thing we might want to think about if we want to remember better is the place where you are sitting while you read. Because think about it. If you want to remember everything you read, the place where you are sitting needs to be calm and really quiet.
I know exactly what you mean. If you try to read in a room with a lot of noise or a lot of people talking, your mind gets distracted.
It does. It's like your brain is trying to do two things at once. Read the book and listen to the noise. It can't do both.
And even if you think you are catching one or two things, you are losing your focus. And even a small noise can make you lose everything you just read.
Right. So a calm and quiet place is very important.
And you know, some people even prefer to put on sounds to help them, like rain sounds or nature sounds.
Yes, it does help for some people. It helps them put their mind in a good mood and get comfortable, so they can really focus on what they are reading.
So, next time you are reading, think about reading in a calm and quiet place that helps your brain relax and focus. And that's all for today's episode about how to remember everything you read.
As usual, we have a question for you. Out of the things we talked about, what is one thing you will try to do this week to remember what you read?
We love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe for more English listening and speaking practice interesting topics, tips, and much more.
Thank you for letting us be a part of your learning journey. Keep practicing, keep improving, and take care, everyone.
Now, it's time to go over some new words and phrases from today's episode. The first phrase is stumbled upon. To stumble upon something means to find it by accident when you were not looking for it. For example, James stumbled upon that interesting story he was reading. Frustrating. It means a feeling of being upset or annoyed because you can't do something. For example, it is frustrating when you can't remember something you read. Game changer. A game changer is something that completely changes a situation in a big way. For example, learning to read actively is a game changer because it helps you remember everything. Engage. To engage in today's context means to be actively involved in something. For example, we talked about how you need to engage with the words. It means you are not just looking at them, but you are thinking about them. Recall. To recall something means to remember something you learned or knew from the past. For example, James said he could not recall what he had read. He could not remember it. The next word is silly. Silly means something is not serious or a little foolish. For example, James said it may feel silly to talk to a book, but it is actually a good way to practice. Visualize. To visualize means to make a picture in your mind of what you are reading. For example, when you read about a house, you can visualize a house in your mind. Distracted. To be distracted means your attention is taken away from what you are doing by something else. For example, if you read in a noisy room, you can get distracted by the noise. And lastly, reinforce. To reinforce means to make something stronger. For example, when you talk about what you read, it helps to reinforce the information in your mind. It makes your memory of the information stronger. Thank you again, and take care, everyone.